that's what we're building. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Burton Builds. Today we are not unboxing anything for a change. It's not Burton unboxing. Today we are actually going to build something. We're going to be building a wheelie chair. Wheelie bar stool. This thing. We're gonna be building basically this. We talked about it on the last video. It was an old office desk chair thing that broke. Broke when I cut it up. We don't really need that. As I said in the previous video, the reason I need this wheelie bar stool is because one of my tables is 900 millimeters high. It's quite high. So this is about 600, 900 is somewhere around here. And I do have a wheelie chair, by the way. Here it is. But the only problem is it's a little bit short. So working at this type of table, you know, unless you wanting to smell what the table smells like, it's not really going to work. So I needed something higher. And especially with the other table, I mean, we're kind of sitting at eye level. So we're going to take a couple of raw materials. I've got some wood, some steel, a little bit of foam, some vinyl. This is black vinyl. And basically an office chair. We're going to cut it up and kind of mash it together. A little bit of cardboard and copper wire. And hopefully it works. We're going to do an NCAD drawing here, not a computer-aided drawing, kind of chalk and talk, or pen and talk. The plan is to get our, what do you call that thing? I keep on forgetting, an office chair. That was an old office chair. Get the base of the office chair. It's kind of like that. My drawing is not very good, but basically that's what we're looking at. These are wheels, by the way. And it's got a little like pipe thing sticking up there. Now, this centerpiece is actually a piston. So if we take off this little cover, yeah, this piece is a piston. Now this piston actually goes up and down. Let's see if I can push it in. Oh, I need to go to gym, but there we go. So that's where it goes down to, and it extends out to there. Basically what we need to do is we need to extend it because it's not long enough. So we need to put on like a piece of pipe and then literally just a bench or a chair to, you know, put your ass onto. It's as simple as that, really. So the things that I've got are these. As we said, it's a couple of raw materials. The main thing that we needed to get was a piece of pipe. Now, you can probably go down to your local hardware store, get one of these things, you know, buy just a meter of pipe, the correct size. Of course, being the person that I am, I did not go to the shop. I went to the scrapyard. Yeah, I love the scrapyard. So went to the scrapyard and just scrounged around a little bit, measured this. The outside diameter of our piston is 28 millimeters. So I needed the inside diameter of a piece of pipe to be 28 millimeters. Was just scrounging around. It took me about 10 minutes to find something, and luckily I did. So I think this was part of, what do you call it? A scaffolding, I think is what it's called. It had like a wheel thing. It had this thing on the bottom, so that was kind of bolted onto the top. And I think scaffolding, you know, just you know, we're not going to use that wheel, but we're definitely going to use this. And as luck would have it, it's already got a plate welded on the top. So, you know, perfect. What we're going to do is we're going to slide that onto our piston. We're going to make some type of clamping mechanism right here. And then kind of put a piece of wood, just, I don't know, a round piece of wood on the top, screw it on, and then put some foam on. And then we're going to cover it, and you know, that's the chair. It's really that simple. I don't know if any of you have ever stripped or disassembled an office chair, but usually they've got a chair kind of bolted on the top, and then they've got something like this, and that's normally kind of joined with some type of mechanism on like that. So what I've done is I've already cut the whole top off. I mean, literally it was just taking off a few bolts. You know, here's the little pin. So really not a lot of work. Ended up also having to cut a certain section off over there. Really, it wasn't difficult at all. So I was left with just the tube. So this is all going to go to the scrap heap. I just want to get rid of it quickly. Kind of the back of the garage is a scrap heap. Something that you want to keep in mind when looking for materials, say looking for a piece of pipe, maybe you order a piece of pipe with an inside diameter of 28 millimeters. Well, that's what we need here. Most pipes are joined with a seam. Now, you're not really going to be able to see this, but this piece of pipe is quite thick, and it's got a seam all the way down here. And inside, the pipe will be 28 millimeters, but the seam actually sticks out maybe 0.5 millimeter. So it's not perfect. That seam we might have to grind away. If we just kind of put this pipe onto our piston, it's just going to slide all the way down. Look, we don't want that. I mean, we want to be able to sit in the chair. So what we need is a method of clamping it. To make our little clamp, what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut a slit at the seam. And then we're going to take these two little nuts and a small bolt. Well, it's not so small, it's probably 12 millimeters. And we're going to cut a slot, as I said, and we're going to weld the nuts, one on either side of the slot. Now, before we weld the second nut, we're actually going to drill it out so that this bolt kind of slides through. So what we're going to end up happening, or what we're going to end up with, should I say, is one bolt with thread in, and then the other bolt that doesn't have thread in. And what then is going to happen is when we screw our little cap screw in, we're going to screw it in, and we're going to tighten it up, and then that is going to pinch the tube. And by pinching the tube, or the outer tube, it's going to squeeze it onto the piston, and then we're going to have a nice solid connection. So that's the plan. So what I want to try and do here is kind of push this piston down. Now, Jesus, really not easy. And then I want to mark around the piston just to see how far down it goes. So there's our mark. The reason I've done that is because I don't really want the tube going further down than that mark. Now, we need to keep in mind that the top of this tube over here is actually tapered. So it's tapered kind of to this point over there. So we've only really got from here to here, that distance. There it is. We've only really got from there to there to clamp, whatever we're going to clamp. Now, that should be enough. I would like a little bit more. So I'm going to say maybe let's just go a little bit into, maybe another 10 millimeters down. So the chair won't be able to go as low as what it used to. But, we'll give some here, take some there. Should work. And then the reason we've done that, the reason we've made the measurements, is because now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the slit. So we need to know how high up to cut the slit. So I reckon, just a ballpark, I haven't really thought about this yet. So I reckon if we just hold it there and we cut the slit, I don't know, maybe somewhere up to that point. We cut it kind of down there, down the seam. That should be enough. So we're just going to cut the slit, basically, like I said, about 3 millimeters wide. Now, this is only a 1 millimeter disc, so we're probably going to have to make 2 cuts and then break the center piece out. Shouldn't be a problem though. I think what we should do now is go and check that this piece of pipe actually fits over the piston. What we do need to do first is deburr the inside of the cut. Something to keep in mind is that when you're cutting kind of any metal or really most hard objects, they leave burrs, and those burrs are quite sharp, and that's basically one of the reasons we are wearing gloves. So just be aware of all of those little sharp areas. You really don't want to cut your fingers up, and it is so easy, it happens so quickly. If you just stick your finger in here, maybe you wanted to feel just the inside of the pipe, just to feel that it was clean, and you pulled your finger out, and there was a little burr in there, it would slice your finger like nobody's business. And that's pretty much the end of your day then. So, unless you've got insulation tape, then we just wrap it up. But otherwise, keep that in mind. And let's have a look if it fits. It's yeah, not really fitting, a little bit tight. Ooh, I think what we need to do is try and shove something in this gap, maybe a screwdriver or something, just to expand the pipe slightly. Let's do that. Use an old screwdriver or a crowbar or something in there. Don't go and mess up your dad's good screwdrivers, or in this case, my screwdrivers. So what we're just trying to do is we're just trying to open up that gap just a little bit to open up the inside diameter of the tube. It's better, but it still needs more. Almost there. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to increase the length of the slit, probably another 20 odd millimeters, so that the pipe opens up just a little better, and then once it's over the piston, then it'll clamp at the bottom. Okay, that is starting to look a lot better. I reckon that'll do. So we just need to now weld the nuts on, well, drill one of them out and then weld both of them on. And once that clamps, I reckon that is going to be a pretty sturdy pole. So what I'm thinking is on either side of the slot now is to kind of weld the nuts on like that. And hopefully once, you know, of course this pipe is over the piston and you put a bolt through, it's going to pinch the pipe closed, and that's going to create kind of that sturdy joint. So next thing, let's just go and drill these out. You didn't think I was really gonna drill that nut out by holding it with my fingers. Something I don't have for the drill press is a vise. You know, you get like kind of a little machine vise that normally bolts on or bolts into these slots. I don't have one of those. If anybody would like to donate one to me, I will definitely take it. But for today, a good old vise grip is going to have to do. Yep, I would say that came out pretty well. Before we weld the nuts onto the piece of pipe, those are galvanized nuts, and this is a piece of galvanized pipe. So we need to actually grind the galvanizing off, so we're down to bare fresh metal on both the pipe and the nuts. And that just kind of provides a nice surface for the welding to kind of weld onto and flow into. It gives you a much better weld. When you try and weld onto, say, galvanizing, from what I remember, I did this long ago, it very much splatters and doesn't make a nice weld, so keep that in mind for next time. So quite a hot pair of nuts. Yes. This is kind of a tricky one because I'm going to have to hold the bolt while I weld it. I don't really have a clamp that'll do the job, but I think I might get away with it. Yeah, it's looking pretty good for now. I'm going to try and get the other nut tacked on before I weld the whole lot up. I reckon it's probably the safest thing to do in case I need to tweak the nuts once they are tacked. Cool. So what we've ended up doing here is just tacking both the nuts on. Now we're going to weld them completely, but the thought behind this is that once these two are welded on and you tighten up this bolt, it will squeeze that little gap closed, and that's where it's going to clamp onto the piston. We've got the steel bit of the construction complete. It is over here. Welded the two nuts on, and I also drilled two holes. We'll have a closer look at that shortly. But what I wanted to do is just get some grey primer on here and start letting it dry while I work on the actual seat part. So what we're going to do basically is just cut out a round section of wood, and that's where we're going to sit on. So I'm going to do that, and then we're also going to cut out a round piece of this foam, same size as the wood. We're going to glue that on, and then we're going to cover it in vinyl. The plan is now to make a circle as big as possible on this piece of wood. So what we're going to do is just get the center, and then we're going to scribe a circle and then cut it out with a jigsaw. It's 220, so half of 220 is 110. Most days it's 110. And then we want to go at least 110. I would say let's go 130 in. Geez, this pencil is about as sharp as me after a 6-pack of beer. Old bit of tech that we got here. It's kind of a woodworking tool. I think it's a woodworking tool. I'm not too sure if I'm using it the correct way, but I'm going to use it anyway. See if I can make or get some use out of it. Aha, perfect. Can't really see the line, but we'll make a plan with a pencil. Done. Our piece of wood is now cut out. That's for the chair section. We're going to stick a piece of, I think this is like a closed cell type of foam, just to make the chair a little bit soft. So we've got to cut that out and then cut the vinyl out. I need a knife. Don't tell my wife, but this is the good knife from the kitchen. Hey, looking good. Not teabag. We need to make the holes. There's going to be 4 holes in the bottom here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball the middle and then mark the holes, drill them, and then put these little bolts in. Now they are countersunk bolts, so we're going to countersink them into the wood. I think before we go and drill the holes, I'm going to throw some paint onto this piece. Now we're going to spray it silver as well. Spray it with this engine enamel spray paint, nice silver, and that should match the rest. Well, actually the rest of the thing is black. Well, it'll make a good contrast, so let me do that quickly and then we'll get back to drilling the holes. It's not even open. Okay. The next thing we need to do is to just countersink these holes so the kind of the nuts or the head of the bolt is flush. These are 6mm countersink cap screws. I've drilled a 5.5mm hole and I'm just going to tap the screws through. The reason I've done that is because once they are in and the kind of this foam is glued on the top, then I don't want these screws turning in the wood when I tighten the little nuts underneath. So I'm hoping just the friction between the screw and the hole is going to actually be enough to hold it. The little 6mm bolts are in. They are nicely flat with the top and they they are quite friction fit into those holes. So next step is just to get this piece of foam glued onto the top. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of spray contact adhesive, apply that to both sides or surfaces, and then glue them together. Okay, now to get the vinyl onto the actual seat. And that's pretty much it there. So plan now is to just wrap the kind of the edges around, and we're going to staple gun it all around the edge, and then we're going to cut it out, and then the top part of the actual rolling bench is ready. The paint on that piece should be dry soon, so I think we're almost done. Almost done. I would say that the top of our chair has worked out pretty well. It's nice and flat, got quite a nice beveled edge. I wasn't too worried about all these little pleats or folds around the edge, because this is really a chair for the garage. So cheap and nasty, or quick and nasty, that's how we like them. And I think it'll work pretty well. So basically just down to assembly now. Couple of parts, kind of the base, getting that standpipe on, and then this onto the top of the chair, and then we should be done. Okay, I think that is tight enough. I think that will finish stuck. So our chair is now finished. There is one small problem with it. I think it just needs to be serviced. But the valve on the top of the piston is getting stuck. So we'll push it down, and it just comes straight back up. Now that little valve, when you press it, it is supposed to let the chair down, and then when you release the valve, wherever the chair is or the piston is, that's where the chair will kind of sit, or that's where the piston will stay. That's not happening because that little valve is kind of getting stuck in, and that's the job of this little lever over here. So the lever is working correctly, the valve is getting stuck, but for now the chair is actually going to work really well. I think it came out quite nicely. It's nice and sturdy, really strong. It's comfortable to sit on as well. It is a little bit high in the fully extended position, but if I kind of put it down and if I sit on it right over there, that's perfect. Once we've got that whole adjustment valve thing sorted out or serviced, I think it'll work really nicely. And it feels sturdy. It rolls very easily. So I'm pretty happy. It's been a good result. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, thanks very much for watching. Give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't enjoy it, well then, otherwise leave a comment in the gap below. I always like to hear from you. Keep safe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.